Today you must be watching here, as discussed, the wasteland, the four sections, the burial of the dead, the game of chess, the fire sermon, and what the thunder said. First of all, students, we will understand here the significance of the wasteland. What is the significance of the wasteland? It is the first question wherever you go for the interview. So my answer would be, your answer would be that the wasteland is actually a spiritual wasteland of you, of I, you and I, presented in a number of frustrated sexual images, which is signifying death. And it is a comic vision into the immense panorama of futility, of anarchy that is modern civilization. The poem is full of broken images, shattered images, which is also the state of modern civilization. Eliot's sense of tradition, juxtaposition, and historical imagination make even the prehistoric past contemporary. So this is what is the significance of the poem Wasteland. And it is actually a very important landmark in the history of English poetry. The reason is, it is one of the most celebrated, one of the most concerned among the professors, among the universities, around all the corners of the people who are literate in the literature field, and the most talked about poem of the 20th century. Very long poem, about 440 lines in 5 parts, entitled The Burial of the Dead, The Game of Chess, The Fire Sermon, What the Thunder Said, and yes, Death by Water. This is number 4 point. I forgot this, Death by Water. Death by Water. So इसका chronological system से याद रखिएगा, अक्सर भूल जाते हैं. The Burial of the Dead, The Game of Chess, The Fire Sermon, Death by Water, and What the Thunder Said. ये कब लिखी गई थी students? In 1921, when T.S. Eliot was in Switzerland and he was actually trying to recover after a serious breakdown in health. And this serious breakdown in health was caused by some domestic worries and personal health crisis, the mental derangement of his wife, who ultimately died in the mental hospital, and the nerve-shattering impact of the World War I. As I already told you that this poem was first published in serial form in the magazine The Criterion in 1922. And later on, when the Wasteland was published in the book form, Eliot added some notes into it, and in this way admitted that the poem is actually difficult to follow because of so much symbols and symbolic reasons. And when it got first published, it actually invited a lot of adverse criticism. It was considered a series of slightly related separate poems. किसी न्यूज़पेपर ने कुछ कहा, किसी क्रिटिक्स ने कुछ कहा, किसी स्कॉलर्स ने कुछ इसके बारे में कहा, लेकिन lot of adverse criticism was to be taken into consideration when this poem got published in 1922. And with the passing of time, the poem started getting appreciation from all corners. Tributes were being paid to Mr. Eliot and to his remarkable achievement, and beautiful commentaries by great critics like F.R. Lewis, by Kenneth Brooks. They actually gave a lot of interpretations when they actually came to know about the real meaning, the real significance of the wasteland. And as a result, it came to be regarded as a highly condensed epic of the modern age. And it will not be an exaggeration, it would not be an hyperbole to say that the wasteland is still the most influential poem of our age. Now we will discuss here what is actually important for you students to understand, that the wasteland is written due to certain reasons, and it has a mythical background. And all these things came from which place? How it was composed? So the wasteland was composed when T.S. Eliot had been reading Jessie Weston's book From Ritual to Romance. जेसी वेस्टन की एक बुक थी जिसका नाम था फ्रॉम रिचुअल टू रोमांस, एंड जेम्स फ्रेजर्स फेमस बुक द गोल्डन बाउ, BOUGH. And somewhere T.S. Eliot has himself acknowledged that he was very much influenced by these two books, or the anthropology and the ancient and the primitive myths and the legends, which is actually forming the mythical background to the poem, which is all derived from these books, which is being read by T.S. Eliot. अगर कोई आपसे पूछे कि लीजेंड ऑफ ग्रेल एंड द फिशर किंग कहां से आया है, सो इट इज फ्रॉम मिस वेस्टन्स बुक, मिस जेसी वेस्टन की बुक जो फ्रॉम रिचुअल टू रोमांस है, वहां से आया है लीजेंड ऑफ द ग्रेल एंड द फिशर किंग. और गोल्डन बाव, और जो गोल्डन बाव है जेम्स फ्रेजर का, वहां से क्या आया है? He has derived a lot of immense knowledge of the vegetation and the fertility myths and rituals. And unless and until a student will not understand these fundamentals, it will be very difficult to understand the poem, because they are the objective correlative for the poet's emotions, that it would be worthwhile to examine the details of the wasteland. The first to be discussed here, to make your concept very clear, is the Grail legend, which I told you, which came from the Jessie Weston's book. What is this Holy Grail? Holy Grail है क्या? It is basically a cup. It is basically a dish, एक बर्तन है, और इसको medieval legend में associate किया जाता था with the adventures of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. This Holy Grail legend is basically a medieval legend which is associated with the adventures of the King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. And this grail or cup or plate, which is actually used by the Christ for his last supper, जिसमें कि उसका blood इकट्ठा किया गया when he was crucified. And so it became a holy name, it became a symbol of holiness. So आप किसी भी चर्च में जाइए तो देखिए वो एक होली कप और डिश होता है जिसमें से आपको वो दिया जाता है when at the time of you go into the church. So this has acquired some medicinal and miraculous properties, and so it became an object of devotion and worship. And so the chapels for it came to be built in the several countries, and its worship was organized. So this is the story behind it. एक चीज मैं आपको इंपॉर्टेंट बताऊं कि ऐसा माना जाता है कि जो ये ग्रेल था, ये जो कप है, ये खो गया उस चैपल से कहीं पे. So it is generally believed that the lost grail sometimes appeared in the sky as a floating saucer of great beauty and splendor, but it could only be seen by a knight of virginal purity. And this Tennyson has treated this theme in his poem Ideals of the King. बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट ये बात है नेट एसेंट्रिक, कि कौन सी चीज, कौन सी स्टोरी कहां से कहां रिलेट है. देखिए मैंने आपको बताया कि ये जो स्टोरी लाइन है, ये फ्लोटिंग सॉसर ऑफ ब्यूटी एंड स्प्लेंडर विच कैन बी सीन जो कि अपनी आंखों से देख सकता है, वो नाइट ऑफ वर्जिनल प्योरिटी, एंड दिस थीम वाज टेकन बाय टेनिसन इन हिज पोएम आइडियल्स ऑफ द किंग, मेकिंग सर गालाहेड the knight of King Arthur's round table as a leader who is destined to succeed in his holy mission. Now, we will go for the Fisher King. Fisher King भी इसी जैसी वेस्टर्न के बुक से उसने लिया है. वैसे द फिशर किंग का जो एपिसोड है, उसका जो लैंड था, इट बिकेम डेजोलेट. सो ऐसा माना जाता है कि इन द कोर्स ऑफ क्वेस्ट, पार्सिफल, PARSIFAL, जो क्वेस्टर था, ही वॉज अ क्वेस्टर, and the other people, the followers, the adventurers, they somehow came to a country ruled over by a prince who is known as Fisher King. ढूंढते 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 उस सॉसर को वो किसी तरीके से भटकते हुए फिशर किंग के प्रिंस में, उसमें, उसके किंगडम में आ गए. एंड ये वो जगह थी जहां पे ग्रेल वर्शिप हैड बीन एंशियंटली, बहुत पहले से चलन में थी, वोग में थी. एंड अ टेम्पल नोन एज चैपल पेरिलस आज भी है वहां, लेकिन कैसा है? ब्रोकन, डाइलिपिटेटेड, टूटा फूटा सा, ऐसा लग रहा है रो रहा है वो अपनी कहानी लेकर के, एज अ मोर्नफुल मेमोरियल, जो कि एक समय में अच्छा था, अब नहीं है. तो ऐसा माना जाता है दैट दिस लॉस्ट ग्रेल was hidden in a chapel. At that time, the king himself had become a physical wreck, impotent, as people used to whisper, of a sin committed by his soldiery in outraging the chastity of a group of nuns who were attached to this Grail chapel. So the impotency of the Fisher King was reflected sympathetically in the land of which he was the head and even the ruler. So consequently, what happened? It became dry, it became barren, it became haunted, wanted of famine, and the king